President Biden and President Chavez of Costa Rica will continue to deepen the strong relationship between our two countries. Costa Rica has been a regional leader. They are a strong democracy with a thriving economy and leading by example on migration management. Costa Rica is an endorsing country on the Los Angeles Declaration on Migration and Protection and has led the way in offering protections and legal pathways to vulnerable populations. During their meeting, President Biden and President Chavez will discuss how we can continue to expand and strengthen these legal pathways as an alternative to irregular migration. The two leaders will also discuss how they can continue to work together to strengthen these legal ties and build inclusive and resilient economies by developing supply chains and creating good family-sustaining jobs for our people. We'll have a readout after the meeting, as we normally do, but one thing you'll see is an even closer partnership between the two countries coming out of today's bilat. Also today, the Biden-Harris administration is announcing a new package of security assistance for Ukraine to meet Ukraine's critical security and defense needs. It includes additional mine-clearing equipment, missiles for air defense, ammunition for artillery, and high...
I thought she said mind-clearing equipment.
Arms ammunition.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Help Ukrainian forces on the battlefield and support its air defenses as Russia continues to launch brutal strikes against the people of Ukraine, including attacks this past week that have taken the lives of innocent Ukrainian civilians. The Kremlin could end this war. They can end it today, anytime, by withdrawing its forces from Ukraine and stopping its brutal attacks. Until it does, the United States and our allies and partners will stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes. Now today, as you've all been reporting and you've heard from us already, we are taking another important step in bringing the President's historic Inflation Reduction Act to life for the American people. This morning, Medicare announced the first 10 drugs selected for price negotiation for the first time ever, which will reduce health care costs for American families and lower the deficit as well. With more on the President's plan, as I mentioned at the top, I'll turn it over to the President's Domestic Policy Advisor, Neera Tannen, who's back a second time in just like less than 2 weeks or something like that. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Corinne. Good afternoon, everyone. Millions of Americans struggle to afford prescription drugs. We understand that. Far too many Americans have to ration prescriptions, cutting a pill in half or taking a lower dose than they need because their drugs are simply too expensive. 1 in 5 seniors struggle to pay for prescription drugs. In fact, Americans pay 2 to 3 times more for prescription drugs than citizens in other developed countries. Meanwhile, pharma has spent hundreds of millions of dollars to stop Medicare from negotiating lower costs. In fact, years ago, they got a special carve-out that prohibited drug negotiation that allowed pharma to charge whatever they can. For decades, we've been talking about giving Medicare the power to negotiate lower drug prices. President Biden actually got it done. Under the Inflation Reduction Act, finally, Medicare will be able to negotiate lower prescription drug costs for seniors and other beneficiaries. This is a historic victory. In fact, over 80% of the public supports giving Medicare the power to negotiate lower prescription drug costs. Today, as Corinne pointed out, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services announced the first 10 drugs selected for Medicare price negotiation. These 10 drugs are taken by 9 million seniors. They cover chronic conditions like cancer, heart disease, arthritis, and diabetes. It can cost up to $14,000 per month. For example, over 500,000 Medicare beneficiaries rely on one of these drugs, Entresto, to treat their heart disease. This drug costs less than $150 in Australia and over $300 here in the U.S. Imbruvica, one of the selected drugs that treats cancer, costs $6,000 a month in France. In the United States, it's almost $14,000 a month, more than double. Last year, about 9 million Medicare beneficiaries spent over $3.4 billion in these 10 drugs. An additional 15 drugs will be selected for negotiation each of the next 2 years, and then 20 drugs a year going forward. Allowing Medicare to negotiate lower prices will bring more cost savings to American families. It will give them breathing room and peace of mind. And it will make a real difference for millions of Americans. And with that, I'm happy to take your questions.
This is obviously a major step forward in the Inflation Reduction Act. The lower prices won't take effect until 2026. The president has sometimes said, American people need to be patient to see the benefits of this program. Is that too long for people to wait, and are you worried that Americans may not see those benefits, in the connection to the Inflation Reduction Act?
Well, first and foremost, the Inflation Reduction Act is already delivering benefits. Already, there's $35 insulin for seniors, and I would note that many providers have replicated that for the private sector. There are also lower costs from people who are trying to get health care from the Affordable Care Act. That's $800 a year for 15 million people. That's lower increased savings for them. And the inflation rebate aspect of the drug bill, which basically provides that pharmaceutical companies that are charging higher than inflation, the prices are going higher than inflation, they have to pay a rebate back to the Medicare system. So those are all creating savings for Americans now.
Well, thanks, Corinne. A quick follow-up on that. Obviously, consumers don't see the benefits until 2026. How concerned is the administration that Republicans could potentially derail the process by then and roll back these negotiations after the next election?
Well, I would say first and foremost, this Medicare's ability to negotiate drug prices is hugely popular. 80% of Americans support the ability to negotiate drug prices. I do think it's important to point out that many Republicans oppose the Inflation Reduction Act and obviously oppose the ability to negotiate drug prices. So they have been on the side of allowing pharmaceutical companies to charge whatever they can. And that's what the American people really oppose. As I've said at other times, I was part of the team that negotiated the Affordable Care Act. I was here I was arguing for the Affordable Care Act when Republicans were trying to repeal the Affordable Care Act during the Trump administration. They fought tooth and nail to do so, but because the Affordable Care Act had delivered lower prices, or basically it delivered health care.
I gotta grab some coffee really quick. Make sure you guys hit that like button. Get us on the front page.
The insulin reduction, the $35 insulin costs that people are bearing now, the fact that people will see that these 10 drugs are being negotiated, a price will be provided in September of 2024. That will be public. I think it will be hard to repeal the Inflation Reduction Act, and it's specifically hard to take away, basically claw back these benefits, these lower prices. I think people will really rise up against that kind of thing because they know they are paying too much for prescription drugs in the United States, and they are paying more than in any other country.
Go ahead, Selena. Welcome to the briefing.
Thank you so much. The CBO estimates that the government will save around $98.5 billion over a decade with this new program. So how much of those savings will go directly to seniors on Medicare?
So that is savings. There is significant savings to the Medicare program. But seniors pay out-of-pocket costs for prescription drugs. In fact, the person who will be introducing the president pays significant out-of-pocket costs. So people who have out-of-pocket costs, this will deliver lower prices for them. We don't know what the negotiated price will be. This is a subject to negotiation, so we can't tell you the specific amount that people will save, but there will be savings to people both paying out-of-pocket and also to the Medicare program itself.
Thanks. Hey, Neera. There are currently 8 lawsuits challenging this Medicare drug negotiation program. Which of those lawsuits do you see as the biggest threat to this program, and how confident are you that between now and 2026, when all this kicks in, that one of these lawsuits won't result in an injunction or preventing this program from actually going forward?
Well, first and foremost, we should recognize that the CMS, HHS negotiates prices for every other element of the healthcare system: doctors' rates, providers' rates, hospital rates. The only reason why Medicare has not been negotiating drug prices is because pharma got a sweetheart deal decades ago to basically prohibit negotiations. Negotiations are part of market systems.
She's brave using that phrase after what Hunter Biden's been doing.
Very confident. Basically, it is because of the Inflation Reduction Act that we have negotiations. We are very confident in the law, and we should recognize there is no part of the Constitution that prohibits Medicare drug negotiation. So we are very confident in these cases, and very confident that the law will deliver results. And just important to remember that basically what pharma is arguing in these court cases is that they should have no limit to be able to charge whatever they want, and that is exactly why Americans support the Medicare drug negotiation by 80%.
DeRosa says she's a troll. What do you think the fee is to cross the bridge?
To the Department of Justice on the particularities of each litigation or each piece of litigation, but I would say that first and foremost, Medicare's ability to negotiate drug prices is clear in the law and is well established.
Thanks. So one of the main criteria for selecting these drugs is lack of competition. But for at least one of these 10 drugs, there is actually going to be a competitor coming into the market before 2026. So given that, I mean, why does the government still need to come in on top of that for that drug? And is that a waste of effectively a slot, early on here that could be put toward a drug that actually doesn't have competition?
The Inflation Reduction Act specifies the criteria for selection. That criteria is highest drug spend, also that the drugs need to be on the market for 9 years or longer. So there will be also additional drugs, as noted. This is the first 10. There will be 15 next year and 15 after that. So drugs that haven't made it on this list may well be on in the future. And for particularities about the specifications of selection, I would refer you to CMS.
Do you have any concerns that, given the lead time here, that the pharmaceutical industry will adjust its pricing to sort of compensate for an anticipated reduction? You talked about faster than inflation in certain instances, but do you get a sense that broader price inflation will happen anticipating this?
Well, the selection of the drugs are on current price, so that will be the source of the negotiation back and forth. If pharma looks at price negotiation and says we don't want to be on the list, so we're going to lower our prices, that's all to the better. That would be a way in which this law is actually having the important effect of lowering drug prices across the board.
Let me just take you back to what Chris was asking about first, and that is, again, the delay as to why do we have to wait till 2026 to see these changes?
Well, the Inflation Reduction Act specified that, but I understand the frustration that can be out there on this topic. It's been 30 years that people have been trying to get Medicare drug negotiation. I will say it is this president, President Joe Biden, that actually delivered it. There is a year-long process. We will have the drug prices out by September of 2024. It takes time to implement, but Americans today are seeing lower drug prices from the Inflation Reduction Act, from insulin, and in other arenas, and we look forward to the process being set by which we have lower and lower drug prices year to year.
So then let me ask you, since it was set by the law, for those who weren't paying attention when the law was being put together, was delaying it until 2026 a big sticking point for Republicans or others? Why didn't the White House push to have it happen sooner?
Well, we are excited by the fact that we are beginning this process and that we will have these 10 drugs and then 15 drugs after that and then 15 drugs after that and 20 drugs year to year. So we think it is important that these drugs, that this negotiation will take place over this year and that in September of 2024 people will see this price. I will also note that when this price is public, other insurers can look at that price. It is in many arenas. Private insurance has looked at CMS and Medicare as a leader in how to determine prices. So it may well be that insurers use the price negotiated as prices that they use in their own insurance models to affect the private sector.
Thank you so much. Trying again. I understand you don't want to comment what specific prices you're trying to achieve, but can you give us a sense of what the broader objective is here? You said seniors paid more than $3 billion out of pocket for these drugs. Mm-hmm. So in terms of bringing it down, minus 10%, 25%, half less.
Well, I'll say a few things. First of all, the VA negotiates drug prices. It has always had the power to negotiate drug prices. It sets its drug prices are 50% what American consumers pay. But this is all subject to a negotiation. So we do not and cannot determine the price that Americans will see, because this is a true negotiation, and that will be subject for this year-long conversation between CMS and pharmaceutical companies that put out these specific drugs. But we do expect that negotiations will drive prices significantly lower, as they have done for VA and DoD. And just as a reminder, VA and DoD have been negotiating drug prices for decades, and pharmaceutical companies have not successfully sued them. In fact, they all stay on the formulary.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming back
great.
again.
Great. It was so much fun the first time.
I know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's what she said.
Very quickly, you all, as you know, going to hear from the FEMA administrator, who's here with us to my right here. And as you all know, at the President's direction, FEMA has been leading a whole of government effort to prepare and respond to Hurricane Idalia. Yesterday, the President approved an emergency declaration, and since then, hundreds of FEMA personnel have pre-deployed ahead of Idalia making landfall in Florida. And with that, I know that you're coming from the Oval Office.
Thank you very much, Corrine, and good afternoon, everybody. I know it hasn't been very long since I have been up here briefing all of you, but I think that this really is indicative of the pace of the major disasters that we are seeing across the nation. And the reality is, we are just
that we should close the border.
Peak hurricane season. In addition to responding to the current storms, as well as other incidents, we have to remain focused on making sure that we are also preparing people across the nation for these types of extreme weather events. I did just come from the Oval Office, where I briefed the President on the trajectory of Hurricane Idalia and what the impacts are projected to be. And I want to just give a quick update on the preparations that we are making in preparation for the response in Florida, as well as other states that are in the path of Hurricane Idalia. Yesterday, I had an opportunity to speak with Governor DeSantis. I also had an opportunity to connect with South Carolina Governor McMaster and Georgia Governor Kemp to help understand what their concerns were and to identify any unmet needs that they may foresee. And will remain in close contact with all of them in the hours and the days to come as Hurricane Idalia makes landfall and moves across these states. As the President said to Governor DeSantis in his own conversations yesterday, FEMA and the entire federal family are activated to support the people of Florida. The President also quickly approved an emergency declaration in advance of the storm in Florida, turning on the many tools that are available at my disposal to provide the governor any support or resources he may need in advance of landfall and then after. This allows me to pre-stage people, equipment, and resources in Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas, and I have done just that. We have pre-positioned different types of resources across all 3 states to include several incident management assistance teams, our urban search and rescue teams, our disaster survivor assistance teams, and they are all ready to pivot to the most impacted areas immediately after the storm passes. We also have warehouses filled with commodities like food, water, blankets, and medical supplies that are ready to rapidly move into the impacted area at the state's request. But we are not in this alone. We have an entire federal family that is postured to support. Our National Response Coordination Center here in Washington, D.C. is fully activated, and this means that there are several hundred staff from across the federal family that are working together to support any requests for federal assistance. We have our partners from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers who are pre-positioned to support any power restoration needs. Health and Human Services is assisting with evacuations from hospitals and assisted living centers. And the Red Cross has 50,000 meals to support the immediate needs as requested and has pre-staged shelter support to supplement the 19 shelters that are already opened by the state. And This is a really important point that I want to talk about next. It's on preparedness. And again, I really ask for all of your help to help me ensure the people in the storm's path get this message. While we are engaged with our states to prepare for the path of this storm, it's critical that the people that are in the path of this storm are also prepared. And I know that the people of Florida are no stranger to storms, and I encourage all Floridians to take this storm seriously. This storm is very strong and is expected to strengthen to a major hurricane by the time it makes landfall due to high surface temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico. This means heavy winds, high winds, heavy rain, and a forecasted 12-foot storm surge in some of the areas along the western coast. This storm surge, this is one of the highest risk parts of a hurricane and is especially problematic along the west coast of Florida due to the underwater geography. The coastal shelf gets shallow very quickly, which increases the amount of the storm surge, putting more people at risk. Very few people can survive being in the path of major storm surge, and this storm will be deadly if we don't get out of harm's way and take it seriously. So I ask all Floridians to be vigilant and heed the warnings of your local officials. Have a plan to communicate with your family and your loved ones. Charge your cell phones, your batteries, any devices that you may have, and ensure that you are receiving emergency alerts. And most important, please listen to the warnings of local officials. If they tell you to evacuate, please do so immediately. And remember, you don't have to evacuate far. If you are in a storm surge warning area, it could mean just traveling 10 or 20 miles to get out of the most significant impact areas. It does not mean having to travel hundreds of miles to get out of the storm's path. And finally, we are all in this together. I ask that you check on your neighbors, especially those who are older adults, people living with disabilities, or may need additional assistance. But before I close, I want to provide an update on another topic that has been widely reported in recent days and asked by many of you, FEMA's Disaster Relief Fund, which as of this morning has a balance of $3.4 billion. So today, I am directing the implementation of immediate needs funding. This means that FEMA will prioritize available funding for critical response efforts to Idalia, the Maui fires, and any other extreme weather events that may come our way without interruption, while continuing to meet the immediate needs of survivors through the remaining weeks of the fiscal year. I want to repeat, we are prioritizing funding for Idalia, for the Maui fires, and any other extreme weather events that are coming our way without interruption. And I want to stress that while immediate needs funding will ensure we can continue to respond to disasters, it is not a permanent solution. Congress must work with us on the supplemental request that the administration has made on behalf of FEMA. And you are going to hear more from me on that soon. My primary responsibility at FEMA is to ensure that we are always postured to respond to any disaster and to provide the life-saving and life-sustaining support when needed. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Can you relate what you talked about with Governor DeSantis, and add any details about what coordination you're undertaking with Florida officials?
Yes, when I spoke with Governor DeSantis yesterday, my main question is always, what are your main concerns? What are the areas that you have the greatest concern about? And do you have any unmet needs or resources that we can bring in? He shared with me what his posture at the state is going to be and where he has some great concerns. And we are working and embedded with his staff. And I assured him that we have teams working side by side with our colleagues, our emergency management colleagues there at the State Emergency Operations Center to be able to quickly respond as needed.
Following up real quick, what were those concerns that he had at that time?
He shared with me the concern, again, about people taking this seriously and being able to evacuate as a result of the storm surge. He has concerns about the vulnerable populations, right, and making sure that we are providing any assistance we can to help them get out of harm's way.
You mentioned the supplemental request after getting a fuller idea of what has happened in Hawaii and with this storm threatening, a severe impact. Do you anticipate raising the level of that supplemental request as you start to negotiate it with Congress?
Right now, the supplemental request that we have put in is $12 billion, and that will be a bridge to get us through the end of the fiscal year. If we continue to see more storms, we're going to continuously monitor very closely the health of the Disaster Relief Fund to determine what more may be needed. But right now, as the situation stands, the supplemental request will get us through the end of this fiscal year.
In some places, there is frustration with institutions and authorities. We've seen that in the wake of some other disasters. Do you have concern about people taking the warnings from public officials, acting on them? And when we saw with Hurricane Ian, there was a plan, again, the forecast indicated it was going in one place, it went farther south. And
look at Peter, saving his energy for Karine.
No. Are you concerned that there is any wariness, mistrust, or fatigue about listening to officials in times of crisis like this?
I think the important thing to look at, and when we look at Hurricane Ian, is it's not just the path of the hurricane that we need to be concerned about. We have to be communicating what the entire risk is, and the significant risk and the highest risk for loss of life is storm surge. And that storm surge right now shows impacts all along the western coast. And so I encourage people, and I really appreciate your help in getting that message out, that it's not just the path of the storm and it will continue to change, but look at all of the risks that are associated with this storm surge being the most life-threatening, not just where the path is going to go or where the eye of the storm is going to make landfall.
And in terms of the credibility of authorities, do you sense that there is any erosion of that at a time when you're trying to get that message out?
I don't have any indications that there are. I think that what we are seeing right now in Florida is people are heeding their advice of local officials and people are moving out of harm's way.
Thank you. I want to go back to Hurricane Ian. When Hurricane Ian hit, you had many communities of color. You also had poor communities complaining that they were not prioritized during this time, and so they didn't get necessary the relief that they wanted, and they felt like they were kind of put on the back burner. Many of these areas are in places that are more physically vulnerable. What is your message to those who have that concern that there may be a repeat in their community?
Yeah, so during Hurricane Ian, we had a large amount of people that were impacted by that storm, and we had teams of personnel that went out into communities across the state. And as we heard of stories of maybe pockets of people that we had missed, we immediately sent our teams out into those areas to ensure that they were getting registered for assistance, and we were bringing all of the resources that are available. And so what I would say is, if you hear about groups of individuals in parts of the state that after the storm passes are of need and they aren't getting that, let me know. I will send my teams out to those areas to make sure that they're getting all of the assistance that they're eligible for and that they need.
John.
Thanks a lot. FEMA, of course, has been dealing with the aftermath of the wildfires in Maui, and now you're preparing for a very powerful hurricane hitting Florida's southwest coast. To what extent is FEMA overextended or stretched too thin in dealing with these two natural disasters?
We are certainly postured and have the staff that are available to support multiple large events at the same time. We do have several open recovery disasters that we can pull some personnel from if we needed to extend or increase the amount of personnel we have. We also have a very layered approach, right? We can also reach out into all members of the Department of Homeland Security through what we call the surge capacity force for individuals that have volunteered to support during a disaster. And so I'm confident right now that with these two storms that we're currently dealing with in Maui and this one, or even another one to come, that we have enough personnel to go in and support these immediate life-saving efforts.
Last question, Alex.
You mentioned just extreme weather that we've seen all summer from Hawaii, storms in Southern California. Is this in your view the new normal? Just summers where we're seeing these kinds of events more frequently and maybe more intense events than before?
I hate that people are always phrasing things as the new normal.
Typical operational season like we've had in the past. We would normally prepare our staff to be on extra alert during the peak of hurricane season, which is where we find ourselves right now, but our operational tempo has been year-round. We started with atmospheric rivers in California in January, extreme tornadoes in the spring, to the wildfires, and now we are in peak hurricane season. And we have had an unprecedented number of disaster requests from governors because of the extreme weather that they're experiencing. This is our new normal. This is the operational tempo that we find ourselves in, and we have to continue to invest in mitigation and resilience to help these communities reduce the impact from these storms so we don't have such complicated recoveries afterward.
Thank you so much. Good luck. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's good to see you. Okay, we have about 10 minutes before we have to move for the president's event.
Call on Peter.
Reverend Sharpton said he wanted to hold a summit on hate crimes in Jacksonville, and he was going to invite the president and vice president to attend. What was the response to that, the RSVP?
So I believe the date for the summit is still being determined. As you know, and you've heard this from the president over the past couple of years, talking about the fact that we are in the battle for the soul of our nation. Matter of fact, that's one of the reasons he decided to run back in 2019. So we'll continue.
Are they quoting Trump?
Leaders, including Reverend Sharpton, to combat the hate. As you know, he convened the civil rights leaders yesterday to thank them for the work that they have been doing and how critical it is right now for us to continue to fight for the.
Called the leaders in the United States, South Korea, and Japan gang bosses, and has said his military will be prepared for action during the exercises that are underway. Any response to those comments?
So this is the first time I've heard those comments. Obviously, we have said many times, the lines of communication with the DPRK remains open. That is something that we are certainly open and willing to have. I just don't have anything to say specifically about those comments. Okay.
And another foreign matter, the video of Paul Whelan that surfaced today, how does the White House assess it?
So U.S. officials have spoken with Paul within the last several months. I think, as you all know that, but it was reassuring to see that he remains, and this is to use his brother's words, unbowed. Paul continues to show tremendous courage. That does not change that his circumstances are truly unacceptable, and we will continue to be very clear about that. Russia should release him immediately, and that is something that, again, we have been very consistent about.
Thank you, Corinne. A couple of foreign policy questions. The Kremlin, as you're aware, earlier today said Putin will not attend Prigozhin's funeral. And we're just wondering if there is an update on whether the U.S. thinks Putin is behind the Prigozhin plane crash.
So I can't speak to the President Putin attending or not. That's certainly for him to speak to. I'm not going to speak about that from here, but I don't have any new assessment for you. But it seems pretty evident what happened here. That as the president said this recently, I believe as early as last week, that, and I quote, "There's not much that happens in Russia that Putin is not behind." And if this is what it seems to be, this what is certainly was not just predictable, but it was predictable or predicted, if I should say. We all know that the Kremlin has a long history of killing its opponents. That is the history of the Kremlin. And if we take a step back, if you look back for a second, all of this happened because of dysfunction inside Russia. A Russian warlord himself, a cold-blooded killer, a cold-blooded murderer, became so frustrated by the way that the Russian government was waging its unprovoked war against Ukraine that he criticized Russia's failing policies. You heard that directly from him. And so he called out the war's needlessness and marched on Moscow before reaching a deal with Mr. Putin. He made that we saw that, you all covered it for multiple hours. And so now 2 months later, after he struck that deal, he's been killed. So, it's very clear. It's pretty evident what happened here. Don't have anything else to say.
We have an assessment from the administration.
I just said it's very clear what happened here. There's new assessment. It is very clear.
KJP is the authority on what is and what isn't clear every day.
Raimondo's comments earlier today that U.S. companies have complained to her that China has become, quote, uninvestable. Is that increasingly how this administration is thinking about China when it comes to U.S. companies investing there, or was that really sort of an off-the-cuff, undiplomatic remark?
I'm not going to go beyond what the secretary said. She's there. She's the Secretary of Commerce. Obviously, she works with businesses across the country on a regular basis. I'm just not going to go beyond what she stated.
Just to follow up on that, on your last answer, understand the context is clear there, but is the administration concluding that Putin was behind the death of Prigozhin?
It is very clear. I literally just laid out what the Kremlin. I just literally laid out what the Kremlin history has been. I don't have any new assessment. I'm just going to leave it to the words that I just gave you.
Okay, so the administration has no conclusion at this point.
I just laid out what the history of the Kremlin, what Mr. Putin tends to do. I just laid that out. So it's very clear what happened here.
Thanks, Karen. Going back to Paul Whelan, does the U.S. have any idea when that video was filmed? I've seen that it was filmed in May, but do you think that it was actually filmed in May, or is it older?
So I don't have any additional comments to the video. Like I said, I clearly quoted his brother and how he said he seemed unbowed and how courageous Paul has been, especially over the last several months, and how we have been in touch with him. I just don't have anything to say specifically to the video.
Tomorrow the president's going to get the briefing on the Maui wildfires. Will that also turn into a briefing on hurricane latest?
So just a couple of things on.
So natural disasters are the distraction right now? Me and DeRosa are just roasting her over on Kick.
Administration's whole of government response that we have seen in the recovery efforts on Maui, in Hawaii, and so he called this meeting obviously to get his administration's ongoing efforts on the ground and to work on the work underway to support the people of Maui. Clearly, he'll also get an update on the current hurricane that we all are keeping an eye on, Hurricane Idalia, and so that'll be part of the conversation, obviously, tomorrow as well.
Thanks, Greg. The president yesterday told me that he believed that the families of 2 out of the 3 victims of the Jacksonville shooting might be open to receiving a call from him. Has he reached out yet? Has he spoken with them yet?
So I don't have any calls to lay out for you at this time or to share.
And then Congressman Scalise announced today that he's been diagnosed with a form of cancer. Do you guys have any reaction to that, and does the president plan to reach out to him?
Well, obviously, that's devastating news. Our hearts and prayers go out to the congressman and his family. Clearly, he's gone through a lot over the past couple of years. I don't have a call to lay out or to announce at this time, but that is very sad news, and clearly we are hoping for a speedy recovery for him.
Any updates on if the president's traveling to Jacksonville to meet with families?
No travel to.
And then on the drug crisis announcement, how is the president planning to message this? Do we expect travel in the next couple of weeks talking about this specifically? How is he planning to take this message to voters?
Well, you're going to hear from the president in 20 minutes to talk specifically about this new announcement on the first 10 drugs. Look, this is an important announcement when we're talking about Medicare being able to negotiate. We're laying out these 10 drugs. This is something, as Neera was.
Don't worry, hooligans. We're not covering that nonsense.
Folks have been trying to do for 33 years, for decades, and this is a president that's been able to do that via obviously a provision through the Inflation Reduction Act, which I may add was only voted by Democrats. This is something that we wanted to make sure that we were able to do: lower costs, lower health care costs for Americans across the country. So it is an important day, important beginning, if you will, of how we're going to move forward with the Inflation Reduction Act as it relates to the Medicare being able to negotiate. So you're going to hear from the president. Obviously, the president travels across the country pretty regularly to talk about how he's investing in America, how he's lowering costs for Americans. That is one of as he speaks about Bidenomics, lowering costs for Americans is clearly one of his top priorities. So you'll continue to hear from the president about this particular issue and other ways that Bidenomics is working for American families and the economy as well. Yeah, Justin.
Thanks, Corinne. President Putin said that he was going to go to China in October, I believe. Obviously, one of his first trips recently. Do you guys have any reaction, and is there any concern that this might, in some ways, suggest that China and Russia are growing closer or growing closer on Ukraine specifically?
So look, I'm not going to get ahead of potential travel that another country is going to do with another country. So I'm not going to get ahead of that. We've been very clear about Ukraine. Our allies have been, our partners. The president has been able to bring together more than 50 countries to help Ukraine as they fight as we've seen, in a very brave way for their freedom, for their democracy, and that's something that the president's going to continue to do, as I mentioned at the top, as long as it takes. I'm just not going to get ahead of a potential meeting that Putin and President Xi may have.
And then just schedule-wise, I think you were asked about Philadelphia yesterday. I was wondering if you have an update on that, or on Labor Day, if it was in Rehoboth or somewhere else.
Yeah, so don't have any update on Philadelphia or Labor Day, but certainly we will share any of the potential travel that the president may have. Go ahead.
Thank you. I have a question about Guatemala, but first on the meeting this afternoon with President Chavez of Costa Rica, he has expressed the interest of joining the North American Trade Pact between the United States, Mexico, and Canada, the USMCA. I was curious to know if that's something that the United States would support.
So I'm not going to get ahead of the discussion that they might have today, so I want to be really careful, as that's going to happen later today. We're going to have a readout after the meeting concludes. I will say this, that President Biden values Costa Rica's close collaboration on building out of America's partnership for economic prosperity. So the two leaders certainly are going to discuss how they can continue to work together to strengthen our economic ties and inclusive and resilient economies, which includes developing a resilient regional semiconductor supply chain. So obviously that will be part of the conversation. I'm just not going to get into any specifics on your question about USMCA. Again, we'll have a readout once the conversation concludes, or the highlight concludes.
And on Guatemala, do you have any reaction to the decision that the electoral registry took yesterday to suspend the political party of the president-elect, the SID movement?
So we've congratulated R.A. Valo on his election as the next president of Guatemala, as confirmed by the certified vote results. The United States remains deeply concerned with continued actions by those who seek to undermine Guatemala's democracy. These efforts undercut the clear will of the Guatemalan people. So we stand with our partners in the international community, with the Guatemalan people, against these unacceptable efforts. But obviously we congratulate the new elected president.
Green, question on the big election topic, transgender rights. Former Governor Nikki Haley and presidential candidate says, quote, "The idea that we have biological boys playing in girls' sports, it is the women's issue of our time." Does the president agree that this is a women's rights issue?
So we've talked about this many times. This is the Title IX specifically. Look, and again, we've talked about this multiple times. It's a complicated issue, and there are a wide range of views on this. The Department of Education proposed a rule, as you know, that gives schools the flexibility to establish their own athletics policies. And so while establishing guardrails, right, to prevent discrimination against transgender kids. And that is something that is incredibly important, that the president wants to make sure that we also do that as well. So I'm just not going to get ahead of that. As I said, there's a proposed rule Title IX, on Title IX that the Department of Education has laid out. So I'm just not going to get ahead of that as it relates to the Department of Education.
Daughters, does he care that girls are allowed to compete in sports without fear of injury? Does he think it's fair for girls to have to compete against biological males?
I just answered the question. It is a complicated issue. It is.
It's really not. It's not complicated. Wieners should be in the same sport with other wieners. Hoo-has should be in the same sports with other hoo-has. That's what fair was last 50 years or something like that. It's not complicated.
That process move forward, and it is, again, we want to make sure that while we establish guardrails with this rule, that we also prevent discrimination as well.
Guardrails versus guidelines. What kind of language is that?
Respect that. Okay.
Thank you so much. I have a Latin America question and then an Asia question. Starting with Latin America and Costa Rica.
The U.S. and Costa Rica signed a migration agreement, I think, in June. Just wondering if it's worked, if it's slowing the flow of migrants to the southern border of the United States, and what are the legal pathways for people who might be waiting in Costa Rica and trying to claim asylum in the U.S.?
So look, I talked about how they were part of the signing the LA declaration that we did just last year, which is they've been a partner in the region with us, and so we certainly appreciate that partnership and the collaboration that we've had with Costa Rica. I don't have any updates on the specific migration or any data to share with you at this time, but certainly Costa Rica has been a partner with us as it relates to regional migration. And so we appreciate their partnership. They're going to have a conversation. They're going to check in, as you know, in a couple of hours, and we certainly will have a readout on that.
Moving on to Asia, why does President Biden believe it's a better use of his time to go to Vietnam instead of to the ASEAN summit in Indonesia, which he's sending the vice president to?
Yeah, so look, as it relates to Vietnam and our relationships, look, since day one, we focused on rebuilding, right? The president has been very clear on rebuilding and investing in our allies. And that is something that the president takes really seriously, not just our allies, but our partners throughout the world, and especially in the Indo-Pacific. And you saw that very recently, right, as he had the trilateral very recently at Camp David. So as the United States looks to deepen our ties with the region, Vietnam is a key partner in doing that. So the deliverables that will be announced as part of this visit will reflect both the depth and the breadth of that relationship that the president certainly takes very seriously. The visit will be a culmination of shared journey of peace and reconciliation as our two countries look forward to facing the future as our partners together as it relates to ASEAN. Look, he has tremendous respect for ASEAN. He has tremendous respect for ASEAN and was honored to participate in the 3 U.S.-ASEAN summits, including hosting an unprecedented U.S.-ASEAN leaders meeting right here at the White House, as you know. And he had the opportunity to demonstrate his personal support for ASEAN. Certainly, look, the Vice President is deeply committed to the Southeast Asia and also ASEAN, and so we will be her third trip in the region, and so we believe having the Vice President represent the President as they are partners in this is also incredibly important. And you can see from the last 2 years the President's commitment to ASEAN.
During the president's first year in office, he directed 90 agencies across the federal government to create the equity action plans. He also gave them to address discrimination and barriers in communities. But he also directed them to submit those plans in September to the White House Steering Committee on Equity. So can we expect anything toward the beginning of the month in that? Will those plans be released? Any update that you have?
So it's a very good question. As you just stated, when the president walked into this administration, he wanted to make sure at the federal level we were dealing with an issue that was a crisis across the country, which is dealing with racial inequality. And he wanted to do what he can from the federal government, obviously asking the different agencies to figure out a way, how do we make sure that there is equity in the agencies on the federal level. You're right. We're supposed to they're supposed to be reporting back. I don't have any information for you at this time. Certainly, I will touch base with the team and see if there's anything that we can share with all of you. But again, as we just saw yesterday with the 60th anniversary on the March in Washington, you saw the president bring the civil rights leaders. He talked about what happened in Jacksonville and that.
No, I didn't see any of that because I don't watch Old Man Walter.
Community, he has been very clear. It is time that all of us step in and do something and really deal with an issue that's affecting all of our communities across the country. Okay.
Thanks, Corinne. President, while he was in Lake Tahoe, said that he was not interested in dividing the FEMA supplemental assistance from the Ukraine supplemental assistance and the foreign aid piece of the puzzle. what would he do if Congress were to present him with a disaster-only supplement?
So look, I'm not going to get into hypotheticals from here. The president has made it very clear what he is asking from Congress as it relates to the supplemental ask that he is asking Congress of for Ukraine. Let's not forget that has been a bipartisan process, and he appreciates the bipartisanship that we have seen over the last 2 years to make sure that the brave people in Ukraine who is fighting for their freedom, fighting for their democracy.
I just inhaled my coffee. I about kicked the bucket. Jesus loves us.
That is something that we are looking forward towards and are going to work towards. As it relates to FEMA, the FEMA administrator just laid out what's ahead and why the $12 billion was asked. Clearly, we are in a different period, right? As we look at climate change, as we look at extreme weather, as we look at what we've been dealing with, now we're stepping into hurricane season. All of these things are incredibly important. I'm just not going to get into hypotheticals of what the Congress might present, will present. Our administration, including the OMB director as well as the Leg Affairs Office, has been in constant communication with congressional members. We're going to continue to have those conversations. Again, this is what we have asked for is incredibly important, and so we're going to continue to have those conversations.
Yes, Corinne. The White House announced yesterday that the president will mark 9/11 in Alaska on the way back from Vietnam. Can you explain the decision, and does this reflect any kind of a new phase in how we want to memorialize that? And did you look at potentially going to Vietnam on the way there instead of the way back?
So look, we'll have more on 9/11 in Alaska, as you just mentioned. I laid out and announced that. Look, the president wanted to make sure that he, as the president, did something to commemorate 9/11, and that's what you're seeing. That's what you're seeing the president do. We'll certainly have more details to share. I just don't have anything more outside of that. Yeah. Oh.
Thank you, Corinne. How is it possible that an ISIS sympathizer is sneaking people into this country?
So just so that folks, I'm assuming you're speaking to the CNN story, right? Okay, so I just want to make sure that folks who are watching understand the question. So I just want to be really clear here. So the intelligence alerted us to a human smuggling network. We moved fast and successfully to disrupt it. So just want to be very clear that. And we are
being. You disrupted it. Are you saying that you know where all of the people this ISIS sympathizer snuck into the country are?
If I can answer the question, I'm sure I'll touch on everything that you want to ask me. So again,
I bet you will, Diddler.
It alerted us of this human smuggling network. We believe and we move fastly and we successfully disrupted it. So let's be very clear about that. And we are grateful. We are very grateful to the law enforcement for their quick work and their vigilance on this. Now, to your other part of the question, smugglers have been detained overseas, including one linked to the foreign terrorist organization. No sign, there's no sign that anyone moved by the smuggling network has terrorism connections, so I want to be clear there as well. And what we were able to do as precaution, people brought here by smuggling network are being subject to extra vetting and are all in removal proceeding. And in addition to that, anyone coming across the border outside of the network who matches the profile of those in the smuggling network is subject to extra vetting, detained, and put in expedited removal proceedings as well.
You said that there's no sign of a plot, but isn't it true that the U.S. has to be right with preventing terrorist attacks 100% of the time? They only have to be right once.
So let's be very clear. I want to be really clear here. We are committed. Is
this a clear debate?
To making sure that we are protecting our homeland and also protecting the American people. That is our commitment. We will continue to be vigilant on that, and so want to be incredibly clear on this. And we are thankful. We are grateful for our law enforcement who acted very quickly here, and they disrupted. They successfully disrupted the smuggling network.
We've seen human smuggling networks operated by the cartels for years. Why the sudden urgency with this one?
We have always and will be and have been vigilant here when it comes to making sure that we are protecting our homeland. That is
starting to get murky. Starting to get into some muddy waters here.
Is committed to. We will always be and we will continue to be. Let's not forget that this was successfully disrupted And it was because of the quick act of our law enforcement that we are incredibly grateful to. We have to go because the president's going to...
Yeah, you better run away before he's got a follow-up question, you piece of shit.
Prostitute.
Get her, Peter. Good Lord, KJP. Looking strung out again. She is looking strung out. I don't know if these press briefings are kicking her ass or maybe it's her wife. I don't know. I don't know. All right, hooligans, I'm going to read the schedule to you because I didn't have time to do it earlier. We started right when the press briefing started. There was no 2-minute warning. They were just on the screen and KJP was out the door. So we're going to be starting off with a video titled New Yorkers Shred State's Handling of Migrant Crisis. New York City is falling apart. They're falling apart because they're letting all the border crossers come there and, well, they just don't have the resources to take care of all the border crossers. Then we have a video titled Faculty Member Killed in UNC Shooting. That's a really interesting one. I wasn't aware that that happened until earlier today. But what I found is that the shooter, who looks completely Asian, was announced on soft and liberal channels as being mostly white. So you'll see his mugshot and all that if you haven't seen it already. But he's being considered as mostly white, even though it's clear that he's not. But yeah, so I guess it's just their stretch for some white supreme pizza. Throw it in the news and whatnot. And then we have a video titled Alice Cooper loses deal after pushing back on woke ideology. Guess he's not really cool about all the shapeshifter stuff. I mean, he still looks like Jill Handler, or Jill Handler looks like him, however that goes. But 'tis what 'tis. Little pushback, and I agree with him, so you know that's something. Then we'll be wrapping things up with a video titled Mystery California Land Buyers. Who is behind Flannery Associates? We covered this probably a month ago. There's some land right next to some sort of military base in California. Like $800 million worth of land that is being bought up and being developed, and they didn't know what it was for. Now there's some more information on it. It is suspicious. It is very suspicious. So we're going to grab this first video here titled New Yorkers Shred State's Handling of Migrant Crisis. We're going to get started here. Jeb throwing out some ideas for some new t-shirts coming along, so we might have a new shirt design coming out probably in the next day or so. I got a lot of stuff I have to do today. Someone important to me has a special day today, and I told them I would be committed to being there. So I have things going on later today, but maybe tomorrow we'll come out with some new shirts that I think everybody's gonna dig. For now though, you can go check out the Orange Eagle t-shirt that we got, or the Screaming Goat, a goat named Mac. Go check that stuff out in the merch store. You can find the link in the description. You can always find the links in the description if you would like to support the live or go check out the merch. Just so you know, once again, New Yorkers shred state's handling of migrant crisis.
Let's bring in New York Congressman Anthony D'Esposito. He's on House Homeland Security. It's good to see you, Congressman. So we've seen protests in Chicago, in Dallas, in California, and now New York. And, you know, we saw Guardian Angels. Curtis Sliwa was also one of the 6 arrested. So how are New York Democrats going to handle this? How is the Democrat Party going to handle this nationwide?
Well, I think the answer is they're not handling it. That's the problem. You know, when Mayor Adams was running for office, he touted the fact that New York City was a sanctuary city. But the fact is that there was no plan in place for when this city needed to actually be a sanctuary, and that's what we're seeing now. You're seeing, you know, New Yorkers from all political parties, they're angry. I mean, the number that you just put up was 82% of New Yorkers were unhappy with the way this is being handled. That's in a city where Democrats outnumber Republicans by a huge margin. So the message is clear. This isn't a partisan issue. This is an American issue. The fact of the matter is that Secretary Mayorkas and our president and the administration, the Biden administration, they are a clear dereliction of duty. They're not doing what they're supposed to. The Republicans in the House of Representatives passed the Secure the Border Act Act back in May, which would have brought money and will bring money for infrastructure and technology on the southern border. It'll hire more Customs and Border Patrol agents, but we don't see it moving forward. Why? Because the Biden administration and our border czar, Vice President Kamala Harris, are saying that the border is secure and there's no issues.
Well, it looks like the Texas and the border state strategy is working. In other words, sending migrants, they have been living with mayhem for years now, the border states and communities. They've dealt with an influx of crime. They've dealt with human trafficking and drug trafficking. And really heinous, horrendous crimes at the border in our border communities. And now you're seeing here in New York cops and cop cars and barricades surrounding a Catholic school in Staten Island. That's now a migrant shelter. It's a former St. John Villa Academy. I mean, protesters say, you know, what they're saying, Congressman, they're saying they're not anti-immigrant. They're concerned about crime. They're angry at city officials who are not telling them they were doing this. One voter said, quote, the government has to stop doing this to our communities, stop doing it in secret, stop lying, and stop lying about it when they're confronted. So, you know, the problem is it just feels like illegality. It feels like it's out of control when you see the influx from the border of illegal immigrants. People are kind, they're generous, they want them taken care of, but they also want law and order. They want it done fairly. They want it done the right way, Congressman.
Absolutely, and that's part of the problem. It's not that you're feeling that it's out of control. It is out of control. Listen, New York City, since the Democrats have implemented cashless bail here in New York, we've seen a rise in crime. I spent my entire adult life as a member of the New York City Police Department as a detective, and we saw crime up and downs through my career. But over the last few years, crime has risen. We're allowing criminals to commit crimes, and be let back out on the street. And now with illegal migrants coming into our city and taking up much of the resources that's needed for others, there's a real problem. And quite frankly, the New York City Police Department is doing the best they can with the resources they have. There's just not enough. And every single day we see more and more coming into our city, and they're trying to deal with the crime that they're already having to deal with because of laws passed by Democrats in the state legislature. It's not feeling out of control. It is completely out of control.
Congressman D'Esposito, thanks for joining us. We'll have you back on soon.
Well, they don't like it. Got all those border crossers there, and now they're all upset. What would you do in response to seeing a border crosser stomping, throwing, and burning our American flag? Because that's kind of what the imagery just looked like there in that clip. A little triggering. It's a little triggering. You ain't even supposed to be here. You could be stomping on our flag. Okay, you're here because we're tolerating it. We're tolerating our government allowing you to come here. Any day we're having a bad day and willing to risk it all, better watch out. Better watch out. Those border crossers aren't supposed to be here, so therefore they're not declared any form of American. They're just invaders. I don't want anything bad to happen to them, but they're getting kids drunk. They're doing human trafficking, selling drugs, bringing drugs, all the bad stuff. No, don't let us start controlling things. We gotta let the government keep controlling things, because if we get in control, there's going to be some accountability and harsh punishments. I can already foresee that. Again, I don't want to see bad things happen to anybody, but Jesus loves us. You can't have people coming here like that. Come here sleeping in the streets and want to fight with everybody. It's turning into France. They act like it's surprising. Like, whoa, we didn't see that coming. We never thought that was going to happen. We figured everybody would just share their kids' room with some border crossers. Hey, you can come sleep with Timmy tonight. You'll be fine. He's getting transitioned over the weekend. It'll be fine. Like, come on now. Wake up, people. KJP's lies are still in my head. Goodness. Make me want to shake my cat. Yeah, you heard me. It's like flipping my chapstick on the live. You guys crack me up. All right, we're going to read through chat really quick, and then we're going to move forward. The next one we got is faculty member killed in UNC shooting. Again, that's a whole bunch of propaganda. God only knows if it actually happened or not. It even mentions in the video that they're like, he hasn't even been charged. He hasn't been charged with a crime. He's just detained right now. I don't know. Something suspicious about that. I'm going to cover that in a second. Just flipping through the chat. Ruby, she's just awful. Yeah. Yes, KJP. She's looking real burnt out. She's looking real raggedy. She needs to, I don't know, make some changes. We're just over here roasting her over on Kick. DeRosa, you're cracking me up. Mr. Beansy Beans, hope it's cherry chapstick. Nope, got the almond oil right now. It's like coffee-esque. "24/7, the adults are back in charge." We'll see. That's kind of how it is, though. It's kind of how it is. The Democrats break stuff, and then they're like, "Oh no, what are we gonna do? It's white supreme pizza." Like the boogeyman or something. They're always trying to do stuff, and then all of a sudden the boogeyman shows up as if it's not their fault. Like all the clutter and chaos around them wasn't caused by them. They're like, "Oh no, outside sources." White supreme pizza, somebody come save us. Trump shows up. You hear the eagles cry as they fly over, fireworks head out. And then he fixes everything, and they're like, "Donald Trump, he's a racist. He's a racist." Like, come on, man. What's up, Shanti? Happy freedom. Appreciate you being here. You hooligans crack me up. Nefties, the whole incident is suspicious. It is. It is. Just about as suspicious as Maui. I haven't found a full video yet. I'm still looking for it, but I've seen clips that they have gated off the burned area in Maui, and they have privacy, I don't know what they are, attached to the fence so you can't see through the fence. And they're claiming that the fence and its privacy layer put up is to help prevent dust from blowing all around the island. But there's so much fencing now that you can't see the burned area at all. You're not able to access the area. It is completely blocked off from the rest of the island. So people are wondering, what's happening? What are they doing over there in the blocked off area? And so people are suspicious of the smart cities being built. And there's a lot of talk of that stuff going on. What is going on in Maui is weird. It is weird. And we don't have any way to tell what's happening unless you can find a local that is posting videos online. That's the only way you can really tell. Otherwise, you're getting spoon-fed, propaganda from the mainstream media. I don't know. There's weird stuff going on in Maui. Sky Bear, they're hiding what they did. Probably. Matt with solid black cloth. Yeah. They're blocking off Maui to where you can't see the damaged stuff, and they're claiming it's a health thing, that keeping the dust from blowing around and ash and stuff like that. But it can't come over the fence. This you can tell the White House came up with that idea. Just like the compliance cloth. The germs, they don't skip. The dust is not going to blow over the fence. It's not going to blow over the fence. It's stuck to 6 feet off the ground. Anything above that, the dust can't handle it. That's White House science. I'm like, I don't know. I don't believe it. Something suspicious is going on. So we're going to move on to this next video titled "Faculty Member Killed in UNC Shooting." This is just as strange. So there is going to be imagery of firearms in this video, and of course I can't show it because YouTube's watching right now. So I will be flipping the screen back and forth and all of that stuff. Pay no mind, just listen to what's happening. You'll see the shooter, who's mostly white. Wait till that comes across the screen. There's a lot of suspicious stuff about this. All right, let's get it started.
Breaking tonight, a faculty member at the University of North Carolina's flagship campus in Chapel Hill fatally shot today. The suspect is now in custody, according to authorities. A lockdown at UNC's campus was in effect for about 3 hours today. Senior national correspondent Rich Edson has the latest information. Good evening, Rich.
And good evening, Brent. Well, police have just wrapped up a press conference. They say they have yet to locate the firearm used in the shooting. At around 1 o'clock this afternoon, the UNC Police Department sent out an alert warning those on campus to go inside and avoid windows after reports of an armed and dangerous person. That was followed by a massive police response and university students evacuating a portion of the campus. About 90 minutes later, the police department sent out this photo, calling him a person of interest, one that matches an online profile for a science student. Police say they aren't releasing the suspect's name and note they haven't formally charged him.
We certainly want an opportunity to interview the suspect if that's possible, and to actually have the suspect in custody gives us an opportunity to figure out the why and even the how, and also helps us to uncover a motive and really just why this happened today. Why today? Why at all?
UNC police say they sent out all clear about 3 hours after the initial alert. Brett.
Okay, we'll follow it. Rich, thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe.
So they got him. Now in that clip, they didn't refer to him as, majority white. But like I had mentioned earlier, the liberal news, the soft news out there, that's how they've been presenting him to the world. Mostly white. I don't know. If I saw that guy in the street, I wouldn't be like, yeah, he's mostly white. I don't think so. I feel like that's an inaccurate description there. Just a long reach for the White House to cry about some white supreme pizza in the streets. Don't think that's the case. On top of that, they detained him, but they're not charging him. They also can't find the firearm that was used in the crime, which is really suspicious. And they're hoping to figure out why he did it and how he did it, what the motivation was. Does he have any kind of what are they calling it? Oh my God, every active shooter's got one now. A manifesto. They're going to be looking for a manifesto and all that. I don't know. You can't just keep recycling the same stuff and expect us to believe it. If somebody walks into an area with labels such as faculty and they smoke one person, and that was the whole goal, everybody in most situations would know why. They'd be like, oh yeah, last week they got into it. Oh yeah, 2 weeks ago they found out he was banging his sister or something. Like there's usually open reasons why these kind of things happen. It's like guy shows up, bad stuff happens, can't find the tool used in the crime, not gonna charge the guy but detained him. Well, that means you can only hold him 48 hours and then you legally have to let him go. Meanwhile, telling everybody is be on the lookout for active shooter, majority white. I don't know. That sounds suspicious to me. That doesn't sound like accurate information at all. This sounds like theater. Sounds like a bunch of nonsense. I'm going to read through the chat really quick, and we're going to move forward to this next one. Nepthys feels like that's what's happening too. And I wonder if the so-called shooters are really plants working for the gov. It's what I mean, I don't know if they're necessarily doing that, but it does feel like a big psyop. It feels like a big psyop. It ain't working. Melissa, I can't read that out loud, but that's funny. Pumpkin the gun ran away. Yeah, show up in a gun-free zone with a gun, and they can't find the gun? What? Like, what do you mean? When I was in high school, they used to have dogs walk down the hallways so they could detect if you had drugs in your locker. And we all knew. You'd be in class and someone would get summoned out of class. You'd be like, oh man, I know that kid's got weed in his locker because he sold me some at lunch. It was like that. There was no way you were sneaking a gun into the school. No way. You would get tuned up so quick. And the school I went to wasn't like the big city ones where you walk in and throw your bag through a metal detector and get wanded. It was nothing like that. But never thought about doing anything stupid like that. This guy brings a gun in there and they can't find it. He left without it. It's somewhere there. They don't know. And then they told everybody to come back because it's all clear. What if he has a comrade who's there? What if he hid it and the comrade knows where it is? They didn't think of that? Shit, I keep talking like that. The government's going to call and be like, hey, we need smart people like you. Like, Come on, man. I don't believe it. Something is suspicious. The math isn't mathing. I don't know. Serum. I don't know if I could say that out loud, but that's hilarious. That is hilarious. Serum, they're pushing for a hard... Wait a minute. They're pushing hard for a full AR ban federally. They're trying. They're trying. Did they even say what kind of firearm he had? It was an assault pistol. He had an assault slingshot with him. Patriot Polywog, I've seen that clip on BitChute and Gab. Are you talking about the fences? I'm trying to I think I seen it on TikTok yesterday, I believe. I'm going to try and find more. I never try to pull those TikTok videos. Not that they're inaccurate. I mean, some of them are, but it's not any more inaccurate than anywhere else. If anything, you can find more stuff happening on TikTok than anywhere else. But you got that stupid portrait mode. I would like to have full screen videos where you can see what's happening. Pumpkin, I feel kind of lied to. Yeah, it's something about that whole shooter situation is... I don't know. I ain't adding up. DeRosa with the assault nunchucks. That must have been what happened. I don't know. How you bring a gun into a gun-free zone and then be like, we can't find it. That seems like something you need to find. That's what it sounds like to me. That's the murder weapon. You probably should find that. I mean, if you have any inkling to actually charge this individual, they're going to be like, his white privilege got him out. Whatever, man. Someone throw the shoe. Throw the shoe. Warcry, we need to find you a new barber. I need time. I know. I've been waiting for you guys to talking about my little spots here. I just haven't had time. Hopefully I can cut my hair after the live today. I'm a busy guy. Slide Dog, a gun-free zone. I want a free gun. See, I don't even know. I wouldn't accept a free gun from the government, just like I wouldn't accept free money from the government. You know there's strings attached there. I'm not. Nah. I'll do it the regular way. The regular way. The guy in the alley. I mean, you know, going to Dunham's. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. You hooligans crack me up. And the gun will show up at Obama's house at Martha's Vineyard. Yep, I'm saying. Matt, they only hate AR-15, so I guess that'll make my AR-10 safe. I'm saying. They talk all that crap about AR-15s and they don't talk about the calibers at all. AR-15s come in multiple levels of calibers. You get like a AR-15 that shoots 308s and stuff like that. And the ammunition you use versus the accessibility for the ammunition, how many rounds can you fire of that ammunition before destroying the firearm? They don't take none of that into account. They're just like, the platform, we got to ban the platform. Like, yeah, okay. You would think if they were so worried about that stuff, they'd be banning like judges. You know, like the revolvers that shoot like 3 different kinds of rounds and one of them is 410 rounds. Should be worried about that. I'm worried about AR-15s. Like, come on, man. Or 10-22s, you should be worried about those. Those do some damage too. And those are all kinds of, you know, you can put all kinds of different parts on those. Those are neat. Those are like the Legos of guns. Serum, you're cracking me up today. I can't read any of that out loud, but you're not wrong. That was killing me yesterday. They're like, oh, what about the government shutdown because we're running out of funding? Oh, we're running out of funding, better cut a check for the blue and yellow country. Like, how can you even say that? How can you even say that? You're sending all that money across, you know, overseas, and now you want to talk about we don't have enough money because of spending? Stop spending our tax money. I don't know. I'm so tired of the tax thing. I don't mind paying taxes. I feel like it's me contributing to society, right? The taxes go for our roads and all of that, and I want all of us to have nice things, and I don't mind paying taxes. I feel like it's my contribution to our country. But the way that they spend our tax money just makes me sick to my stomach. I want receipts. I want receipts big time. I want to be able to... The White House website is full of nothing but propaganda and crap. I want a big-ass chart to tell me where our tax dollars are going. That's what I want to know. What are we spending that on? And you're going to see the majority goes to the blue and yellow country. And it's like, I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like it. Astral Hammer, Jeff needs to cut his hair before he starts dreading. I know I'll have these little antennas coming out of this little patchy spot up here. I don't know. I keep thinking about wearing my hooligan hat because it'll help for promotion. Maybe you guys will buy some more hooligan hats because they're badass. But I don't want anyone to think that I'm trying to cover my little patchiness. This is the way God made me. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not one of those guys you're going to see put a hat on to cover the goofiness up here. Not me. Not me. I'm not ashamed of it. And I get hot. I just about died on my coffee because I decided to inhale it instead of drink it. I went and washed my face. You see how greasy my face is right now? I'm not one of those people who can wear hats. I can't. I'd be sitting here just dripping sweat. It ain't going to work. It ain't going to work. You see me in a hat. I'm not hiding the baldness. I'm just doing promotion. You mind your business. Melissa, $700 to the survivors buys a lot of spam. That's if they even import spam to the island. That's the other thing, and I feel like they're not really raising enough awareness about that in Maui. A friend of mine who's from Samoa, he grew up in Samoa, and when he was old enough, he joined the military, and that's how he came to the mainland, I guess, if that's the right way to phrase it. But ever since, he's been on the big chunk, right? We'll say in Michigan, okay? He went from Samoa to Michigan, but he was always telling me about how they had to be mindful of the supplies that they bought because everything had to be imported. Nothing is made on the island. So toilet paper, toothpaste, food, all that stuff is brought to the island. And what do you think's going on with Maui? I also seen a video talking about jobs. All these people that don't have houses all of a sudden need to make more money and stuff. Some of these people were retired and they just don't have the money to bounce back from what happened there, the devastation. So now they're looking for work. They're saying like 80% of the island is looking for work right now. There's less jobs because everything just burned down, and there's no housing to house these people that are looking for work, and now they've been unhomed or unhoused because of, the fires and stuff. What's going on there is terrible, and we don't even know because mainstream media is our only spoon-fed line of what's going on there, unless you can catch a TikTok from a local. It's rough stuff. Pitcher Walk, spam with the dew. I don't think I've ever ate spam. I've had fried bologna. I don't think I've ever had spam, though. I don't know if there's much of a difference, really. Mr. Beansy Beans, you look good being bald. I appreciate you, Mr. Beansy Beans. Thank you. Yeah, I miss my dreads. I go pull them out of the bag over there, every once in a while. I start getting all heartfelt and say, hey, I miss you guys. Never again, though. Never again. Because I'm telling you, they just start looking like antennas up here. And it's not a good look. It's not a good look. Alright, we're going to move on to this next video titled Alice Cooper Loses Deal After Pushing Back Against Woke Ideology. Now this is the real Alice Cooper. This isn't Jill Handler. I know it's confusing, right? Right when you see him, you're like, Jill Handler? What are you doing with all that eyeliner on? But no, it's actually Alice Cooper for real this time. And he's, he thinks the whole shapeshifter thing isn't all it's cracked up to be. Let's get her started.
Rock legend Alice Cooper is facing fierce backlash after branding transgenderism as a fad. The comment was made during a recent interview where he pushed back against woke ideology and gender-affirming care for minors. And as a result, he is out of a deal. Vampire Cosmetics has decided to cut ties with the rocker now and issued a statement to the LGBTQ community. He now joins other music legends, including guitarist Carlos Santana, who previously came under fire for remarks about transgenderism. John, I'm sure you have a lot to say about this, being so involved in the music industry for so long. Are you one of those folks who just wants all politics out of your music, kind of like we don't want any politics in our sports?
I appreciate musicians and other artists for what they do in their art, but they're also people. and they have their opinions about things. I mean, we have a lot of them on our air. You know, we have Joe Germanato, Lady Gaga's father, on a lot. If Lady Gaga herself wanted to come on and talk about an issue, I'm sure that we'd be happy to put her on. But, you know, sometimes people get themselves in trouble. And that's obviously the case with Alice Cooper.
Very interesting to see the reaction to all of that.
I'm Steve Ducey. I'm Brian Kilmeade.
Yep. Get yourself in trouble over some free speech. I guess. Something that I see the lefty softies out there say over and over again is, yeah, speech is free, but so is the consequences that come from it. Just say you're stupid. Like, just say that. Like, free speech doesn't come with consequences, you piece of shit. That's a part of it being free. Like, you are free to say what you want. That's your opinion. Nothing bad should come to you because of your opinion. People hate free speech. The dumb and soft people do. Excuse me. The dumb and soft people hate free speech, and they don't even realize it, that we wouldn't hear their cries of tampon suction if there wasn't free speech. And so I really hate hearing that stuff. And this guy, loses a deal with Vampire Cosmetics. Guess we won't be shopping there. They're pro people that hurt kids and stuff like that. I mean, not that I was intending on shopping with Vampire Cosmetics or whatever they are. Losing a deal. You know, people are probably celebrating about it too. They're like, yeah, fuck that guy. He had an opinion. I hope he loses everything. Hope his kids catch the plague. You know, like, they're probably saying all kinds of terrible stuff over nothing. It's an old man. He can think what he wants to think. Like, get all bent out of shape of what another grown person thinks. Petty. Holy moly. I just threw my chapstick. I'm going to have to look for that later before Kat Daniels gets it. But thank you so much, Mr. Frizzy Fro, for the $500 donation on Rumble. My goodness. Thank you so much. Like, I don't know what to say. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all the support. You're amazing. Thank you, Mr. Frizzy Fro. My goodness. I don't know what I was saying or even thinking. It's just out the window. Out the window. I'm gonna read through the chat really quick, see what your guys' thoughts are, and we're gonna move to this last video titled Mystery California Land Buyers. Who is behind Flannery Associates? A lot of property being bought up near the military base. $800 million worth of property. We'll cover that in a second, but first we're reading through the chat. Matt, we buy Spam by the case at my house. I might have to try it. If you're willing to buy a case of it, it must be alright. I might have to try it. Matt, I missed what they were saying about Lady Gaga. I missed it. Look at everybody on Rumble. Mr. Frizzy Fro, you're awesome. Thank you so much. Jeb, clean that chapstick off the PC screen. I know, I'm just wrecking my area over here. There's a lot of funny stuff I could say and comply with that, but you know, YouTube's watching and stuff, so I'll just keep it as PG-13 as I can. As much as I can. Hold the Line says, fry Spam, put a ring of pineapple on it. I mean, that might be alright. I don't know what Spam tastes like. I imagine it's somewhere between salami and bologna. Maybe I'm completely wrong on that. When we were younger, we used to fight. There wouldn't be enough bologna to fry up in the pan, so it was like, somebody's getting fried bologna, somebody's having a butter sandwich. That's all we had. And when times were real bad when I was younger, we'd be like, Mom, I'm hungry. She'd be like, go eat some water. Fine. Fine. I'm gonna have to try Spam. I've never had it. Breezy, I like jalapeno Spam. I can't have jalapenos. They wreck me. Maybe I'll put some Diablo on some Spam. Man, I might have to make a video. I might have to make a Spam video. We'll have to try it out. If you guys make me throw up, though, I'm gonna be mad at you. I'm gonna tell you, you guys are all grounded. Hold the Line tastes more like cheap ham loaf. Nah, I've never had ham loaf either. It's not pork, is it? Because I don't eat pork. It makes me feel sick. Breezy, it's very salty. Well, that's good. because then I'll actually be able to taste it. My smell and taste has never been the same ever since, you know, whatever happened 2 Christmases ago. I don't know if you guys remember. It was Christmas. I'd been gone for like a week because I'd been super sick. And then Christmas Day at night, it was like 8 o'clock at night. I showed up in like a hoodie, and I was like sweating to death, dying. I'd been dying for 2 weeks. My temperature was like 105. I was like, Merry Christmas, hooligans. I was all dying and stuff. Ever since then, it took a year to get my smell and taste back, and when I did, it's hit or miss. It's hit or miss. Disco, it's all pork. Well, I can't buy a case of Spam, but I might buy a can of Spam just to make a video for you hooligans. Astral Hammer, it's good, stock up on it. We'll see. We'll see. Jeb, I've eaten this stuff many years ago, not my favorite. Well, if it's got a long shelf life, it's probably worth holding on to a little bit. I got instant mashed potatoes. I got a tote of instant mashed potatoes. Don't be sleeping on the instant mashed potatoes. At Walmart, you can get a little bag for like 50 cents, and you get a big bag for like 80 cents. And that big bag will feed like 8 grown men. Just add some water and stir. I got instant mashed potatoes. I got, what is that, like, what is it called? Not Hamburger Helper, but that kind of stuff. I got a whole ton of stuff from just add water, stir. They even sell those 48-hour packs at Walmart now in the food section. It comes in like a white bucket, and it's supposed to feed like 4 adults for 48 hours. But if you're by yourself, that's like a week's worth of food. I don't know. I'm all about that stuff. Might have to add Spam to the list. Might have to. Snugs, Jeff Mac playing with that pink chapstick again. I'm not flipping no pink chapstick. Don't you worry about that, Snugs, okay? Flipping my chapstick right in front of you hooligans. You don't have to pay extra for it or nothing. Get the show for free. Pumpkin Spam tastes like chopped ham lunch meat. You guys aren't really selling me on it, but I am committed. I am committed. Wilster's wife, Spam is really popular in Hawaii. My brother ate Spam musubi, Spam rice and nori all the time when he lived there. A delicacy. Really? I've never heard of that. See, I guess I'm gonna have to try it. If I go to the store today, I'll grab a can of Spam. I'll make a video for you guys. Serum, I'm waiting for my Soylent Green. Go to McDonald's. What do you think that is? Beef? Come on, man. They say one McDonald's sells more burger in a day than we could supply. So having all the McDonald's in the world and all the burgers that are sold every day, they're like, there's no way that's beef. It's impossible. It's impossible to have that much resource to beef. So you know what it is. That's ex-McDonald's employees. Ruby, it's gross. Well, we'll make a video. We'll see. Disco the cat would enjoy some Spam. Well, he might. He might. If I can't choke it down, Klaus Daniels will have to pick up where I left off. Nobody's Fault says How to Serve Humans. It's a cookbook. I don't doubt that at all. I don't doubt that at all. Zero McDonald's burgers are soy meat. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. I can't eat McDonald's now. I used to when I was a kid. It wasn't a big deal, but now if I eat McDonald's, I got to be within running distance of a bathroom. I don't know why. It's just I'm getting old. I'm getting old. Screaming Eagle Spam, the poor man's steak. Something. We're gonna see. What's his wife? I think Spam is nasty. I'm getting excited to make this video now. We'll see. We'll see. What's up, Garlic Press? Happy freedom. Garlic Press. Biden is lowering the drug cost. Fentanyl is cheaper than it's ever been. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Bringing it over the border by the backpack load. I like Spam when there's no more food. People will really appreciate it. That's how I feel about Diablo sauce. I have 2 freezer bags full of Diablo sauce packets now. And people think I'm crazy, but I bet you stuff gets hard enough, you'll be willing to trade ammunition for it. And I'm banking on it. Ammunition and toilet paper. That's why I think when I open the fridge and I see these huge bags just packed full of Diablo sauce, like airtight, I'm like, yeah, one day that'll be ammo and toilet paper right there. I already know. It's going to make that cat food taste better, I promise. Grow some chicken nuggets and eat the Spam. I can't grow anything here. I was going to grow some peppers in my little greenhouse over here, but it didn't work out. I don't have enough direct sunlight, and I think the grow light I have it's not strong enough. Mr. Beansy Beans, sell it to the highest bidder. Spam is okay. It's a little too salty sometimes. I don't know. I mean, when I was younger, I'd taste food that would be too salty, but nowadays, sometimes it's the only thing I can taste. I can only taste how salty something is. That's what I told her. You look her right in the face, you go, hey, you're a little salty, aren't you? Alright, Hooligans. Moving on to this next video titled Mystery California Land Buyers. I don't know why they titled it like that. That sounds ridiculous. Who is behind Flannery Associates? I think this is going to end up being some big deal. This story will disappear. In 2 years from now, we'll hear about some Chinese company doing some terrible thing, and it'll be right here on this land that they're talking about, and they'll be like, oh, how did that happen? Oh, I don't know. I don't know. The government let it happen. That's what happened. Let's get it started.
After weeks of speculation, we now know who's behind a big land buy out in Northern California and what they plan to do with it. You might remember we shared some new information with you on Monday. That group is called Flannery Associates, and they have quietly purchased about $800 million worth of farmland in Solano County. So who are these people? Why are some people concerned? Emily Finn has been digging into the details for us this morning. Emily, what have you found thus far?
Well, hey, Marky, after 5 years of investigating who is behind Flannery Associates, the big secret, as you mentioned, has been revealed. It's a group of wealthy Silicon Valley investors who have spent $800 million so far to buy up the land surrounding Travis Air Force Base with plans to build a so-called utopian city. We spoke with Congressman John Garamendi, who represents the area, and he tells us he still has concerns about the project's potential impact on the local farmers.
I've been around a long time, and I've seen these kinds of pie-in-the-sky utopian cities come and go. If I were an investor in this, I'd be very, very concerned.
For years, government officials and the Air Force's Foreign Investment Risk Review Office have been investigating the now largest landowner in California's Solano County, 60 miles northeast of San Francisco. Flannery Associates has spent $800 million to buy up 3 sides surrounding the Travis Air Force Base. The investors, including LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman, Stripe co-founders and siblings Patrick and John,
Eminem's in on it.
Silicon Valley investor Michael Moritz, just to name a few, have spent well above the market value for the 55 acres of farmland. Congressman John Garamendi says they've even pressured farmers with legal action to fork over their land.
These folks have used strong-arm mobster techniques to try to force landowners to sell. Generational family farms have been sued for the unwillingness, sued because they don't want to sell their family farm. And I'm going, come on, guys. You've created a very, very bad atmosphere in Solano County.
The group hopes to transform the farmland into a so-called utopian city, offering clean energy, reliable transportation, and jobs to thousands of residents. But the land is not currently zoned for urban development, and Garamendi has national security concerns with the location of the project being so close to Travis Air Force Base.
Presently, that land is zoned in such a way that development cannot take place there. If they do an initiative, if they override the current zoning plans, then they could encroach on the base's operation.
Residents of Solano County must vote to rezone the land, something Garamendi says will be an uphill battle and doesn't address state and federal rules as well. Representatives for Flannery have reached out to him to discuss their plans, but Garamendi isn't convinced they have a solid plan in place and wants to speak with their developer. And according to the New York Times, Flannery Associates plans to continue meeting with Solano County residents and elected officials this week to discuss their project moving forward. Adrienne?
All right. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. They'll come through. They'll do what they want. They're threatening farmers and suing them to try and bankrupt them, basically, so they have to sell their land. The government's just letting that happen? That's okay? Like, they're just let that slide? Keep telling us you care about us, government. Keep telling us that. Feed us your pretty lies. Hair juice of the retirement sauce. Yeah, I'm keeping that Diablo on stock. That and Pokemon cards. You would, if you came in my house, you would think I was a psychopath. There's just American flags, I don't know what this is, electronics all over the place, TVs and monitors, cameras, Google units, dreadlocks in a bag, Pokemon cards and all kinds of crap on shelving, screaming goat, and a fridge full of Diablo sauce, and a giant panther cat lurking around, scared of stink bugs and stuff like that. You'd be like, where the hell am I? This ain't Wonderland. Sorry, Alice. Flipping through chat really quick. That was our last video. That was all the coffee I had for you hooligans today. If you would like to take advantage of the links in the description and support the live, you are welcome to do so. I'll drop the link tree here in a second. McDonald's even sells Spam in Hawaii. That's interesting. It's weird how McDonald's is a little bit different in other places. Like in Canada, you can order a poutine from McDonald's. And I think that's really interesting because you can't do that stuff here. I wonder, do we have special stuff at our McDonald's and we just don't know it because it's not at other places? I don't know. Wilster's wife, when I went back where I lived, is it Kowina? Peninsula? I don't know, I'm probably saying that wrong. I was told by the people who own the cabin where I lived that Oprah and her gang have bought lots of land, so they're sad. I've heard that too. I've heard that Oprah's bought lots of land out there. What else did I hear? There's a bunch of weird stuff happening. A lot of behind the scenes stuff going on with wealthy elites. Disco McDonald's has vinegar. Wait a minute, what? Vinegar for your fries in Canada? Oh, you can have vinegar fries? The only place I've ever seen that is the county fair. And I missed the county fair. There was something I was supposed to do at the county fair this year, and I can't remember, but I missed it. I didn't have time to go. Zero. Kiwina. Thank you for letting me know, Zero. Pumpkin, wait till the homeless hear about their utopia. They'll probably have it guarded. That's what I imagine. I don't know if it's going to be a smart city or what, because it could also be like what Elon's building. Elon is building a city for his employees. So his, like this, I don't know, this society area will be all ex-employees, or Tesla or something. I can't remember which one of his, could be SpaceX, I don't know. One of his endeavors that he's doing, he's building a city for his employees to live at. So they'll live within the area of work. I don't know. Sounds like a smart city. Sounds like a step towards a smart city. Screaming Eagle. At least you didn't violate my Screaming Eagle copyright. Yeah, I messed that up yesterday. We had the Screaming Goat and the Orange Eagle, and we just combined them into the Screaming Eagle. That's Trump's final form. He evolves into the Screaming Eagle. That's when heads are really gonna roll. DCAT, the people of Maui kicked Oprah out, told her they didn't want her around them. I wouldn't be surprised. You lose everything, you're living through a devastating time, and then some wealthy elite shows up for some media attention, wants to come and hug on you and take pictures and stuff. Like, no, I just had to eat my cat because we're barely surviving. I want to look at you sitting here visiting devastated land from your mansion. Those people would own planets if we'd let them. They're just crazy. Like Jay-Z owns his own color of blue. Because I keep telling you guys, the reason they hurt kids and do all this other stuff is because they already have access to everything. They already have everything they want. There's nothing left but your dignity and your flesh. That's all they have left to gain. What's up, Mirror? Matthew, in the UK, traffic control is screwed for days now. McDonald's here, the strawberry milkshakes are nice. I don't know if I've ever had a milkshake from McDonald's. Their damn ice cream machine is always broken, so I don't even ask. What's up, Carolyn? What's up, Salty Ragu? Hopefully we can get Odyssey up and working. I've been working with their tech team to get it figured out, but now I'm starting to think it's the streaming software that I use, or the service I use. The software seems to be fine, but the service is having some issue with Odyssey, and we're trying to get it worked out. Their tech team is awesome. He even showed up yesterday in the live chat to see how it was running and stuff. Here, Juicy, that does sound like some amateur Bond. Wait, what is this? Amateur Bond villain environment. I'm just a big ass kid, and I don't believe in any kind of like presentation, I guess. I don't have visitors here at the house, so it's like I live in a storage locker, and I'm just a big ass kid. So anything I wanted when I was young, if I can afford it, I'll grab it. Pokemon cards, collectibles. I have tons of Fallout stuff, like my Nuka-Cola cap. This is a authentic Nuka-Cola cap from the Wasteland. 10 doll hairs is what that would have cost. I didn't have to spend that because I went in there and they knew who I was, and they were being really cool about it. And I was gonna get a pack of caps, and they were like, "It's $50." I was like, "Holy shit!" And they were like, well, "I'll give you one for 10." And I was like, "Nah, I can't do it." They were like, "Here, I'll just give it to you." I was like, "All right, sweet." So I have an actual Nuka-Cola cap, but I'm all about that stuff. That's why I tell you guys, like, you got to do stuff to make you happy. There's stuff in life that is important to do that needs to get done and takes priority, and I understand that. And after you get done doing that, you don't want to do shit but sit down and take a break. And breaks are important to progress. But when you have the time, or if you can make the time, do something you absolutely enjoy. Because the last thing you want to do is be in your deathbed and be like, all I did is work and do shit that I had to do, and then never got to do anything I wanted to do because I was scared about spending the money. And now I'm going to kick the bucket and none of that shit even matters. You gotta have good times, and sometimes you gotta spend a little money. There's lots of things you can do for free, but make the effort to do something you enjoy. I'll open a pack of Pokemon cards, and I don't care who says what about it, or how dumb I am, or it's a waste of money, or I'm too old to be doing that shit. I don't care. I'll be laying in my deathbed and be like, man, remember that one time I opened that $250,000 Mewtwo? That was dope. Saying stuff like that. Gotta do stuff that's good for you. Whatever it is that makes you happy, take a little time to do that. It's good for your body. It's good for your brain. It's good for your brain. We need to focus on keeping our brain healthy because the world is attacking it. All this damn propaganda and nonsense. Gotta look out for you. Well, I think we made it through the chat. What's up, Big Mac and Pride? Happy Freedom. What's up, Tom Tom? What's up, Jerry? Happy Freedom. Appreciate you stopping in. All right, hooligans, like I said, that is all the coffee I had for you guys today. We're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and we're going to wrap this up. First, I'm going to drop the link tree in the chat. It's already in the description if you'd like to beat me to it. Everything is on the link tree if you would like to join membership programs, make donations, anything like that. Grab a Screaming Eagle t-shirt or an Orange Eagle t-shirt. Oh, I did it again, didn't I? Screaming Goat t-shirt. Sorry, Screaming Eagle. Screaming Goat t-shirt or an Orange Eagle t-shirt or any of the other cool stuff. You can get just a Jeff Mac t-shirt. Go check all that stuff out on the merch store. What I ask that you do is go join Gilded. Gilded is free. The hooligans are there 24/7, keeping the conversation going in a chat like you're in right now. We have a news board there that's a great resource to keep you up to date with everything going on around the world. And I'll also be able to notify you every time we go live, so you don't have to wait for the platform's hit or miss notification system. I will notify you directly every time we go live. And then if something bad happens, like we catch a strike on YouTube because the YouTube platform is soft as shit, softer than Old Man Walter's diarrhea on a daily basis, if we catch a strike or something like that, you'll be the first to know. And then when we go live on all the platforms but YouTube, you won't have to wonder where we are. You'll know. So go join Gilded. It's worth it. All right, hooligans, it's that time again. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. We did the thing. We did the thing. Is it going to freeze now? Because it froze yesterday and everything crashed. And, you know, we're right here. This is when it happens. Is everything are we going to get to say goodbye? I don't know. I've been having so many technical issues for the last 3 weeks. It's kicking my ass. But you guys are fantastic. Jumping through these hoops with me and whatnot to get the truth out there. You guys are awesome. The best hooligans the Hooligan King could ask for. Well, I appreciate all of you guys. I'm going to read through chat really quick and we're going to wrap this up. I don't know if we're going to be gaming later or not. I had intentions of gaming later, but as I said before, I have some priorities today. I have someone that's important to me that has some stuff going on, and I told them I would be there. So, I don't know if we're going to be gaming later. Make sure you're part of Gilded. Gaming, we have a gaming Gilded that is separate from the main Gilded. If you go to the main Gilded and you're interested in gaming, there's a gaming channel with the link to take you to the gaming Gilded, if you're interested in that kind of stuff. Either way, join Gilded, whatever one you find, and I will notify you the next time we go live. You guys stay safe out there. Big shout out to everyone that made donations, joined the membership program, or purchased any merch. I really appreciate all of you hooligans, and I would not be able to do this without you. So thank you so much for all your support. I'll see you on the next live. Until then, stand tall, shine bright, and that's a wrap.